Hello everyone and welcome to our event today, The Memory Box with Eva Natiello. Natiello. Eva, a warm welcome to Online Events.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thanks for coming along live onto the website. It's great to have you here. Oh, Candice is getting an echo. Saz, you'll have some advice for Candice around there. Saz, thanks for being here to take care of everyone in the chat. That's fab. If you're having any difficulties, let us know in the chat room. And if you're struggling to get into the chat, Saz will pop her email in and give you a little hand with that too. Eva, it feels really exciting to have you here. We're going to have a book club tonight, I guess, where we get to talk to you, the author of The Memory Box. Feeling really excited about that. But before we do that though, because we're all online and we're in a virtual space, is it all right to kind of locate you geographically? Would it be okay to ask you to give us a sense of where you are in the world?
Yes. Right now, I'm sitting in my home in New Jersey, in a suburb of New Jersey, which actually was my muse for the location of the memory box. And no one is home. It's very quiet. So I told everyone to leave.
So you've got the house to yourself?
I have the house to myself, and I'm really excited about the book club. I've been doing, since the launch of the memory box, which was the very last week of June, I have been invited to many book clubs who've read the memory box, and it has been incredibly fun. But never have I been invited to one from the UK. So this is really exciting. And thank you for reading. And we could talk about whatever you want to talk about. We could talk about the inspiration for writing the book or wherever you want to dive in.
Great, yeah. So that we've got lots of options about where we go. And maybe this is a little bit more unusual in the sense you turn up at a book club, everybody's had the book, read it, ready to ask you questions. And I guess we're just inviting our audience to come along and have a conversation with us, chat with us. Some may have read the book and some may still to have read the book, I guess. And maybe it might be nice to get a little bit of feedback from the chat room. I have just finished it today and really enjoyed it, Eva. Yeah,
Good.
It's been fab.
Great. So maybe what I should do is just give a line or two of what it's about. Maybe that can start us off. The book is a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
And it is about a woman who Googles herself and discovers a past, her own past, that she is not aware of, or she has completely forgotten. And the inspiration for the book came many years ago, actually. I started writing this close to 8 years ago. When I had read the newspaper, and in the New York Times I read a story about a bunch of people who started Googling themselves. And it's right when this phenomena was taking off. And people were sort of bragging about how many times their name would come up and what they would see about themselves. And there was a boy, a 17-year-old teenager, who was living in LA at the time, and he Googled himself. And he saw that his name was on a missing persons list. And this is a true story. And it's a devastating story because he found out that when he was 2, he was kidnapped he was abducted by his mom, actually. And she was losing him in a custody battle. And she just couldn't bear the thought of losing her son. And she had made the decision to take him out of Canada and move to LA. So when I read that article, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe, I mean, what a fascinating idea to Google yourself and discover something about yourself that you didn't know. So that's where the premise from the book came.
Right. Yeah. So it's a fairly modern phenomenon, isn't it, to Google ourselves, and I guess we have different ideas or feelings about doing that. But that's a really dramatic result that that young man had from doing this quite modern thing to do. Yeah.
Right. And it's fascinating. I'm always looking for stories these days about people that Google themselves and find out something shocking, because I think that's really very, very interesting. And I did read not too long ago that a man Googled himself and out that he was wanted by the police, and he turned himself in. So that was really funny, or not so funny.
Right.
Yeah, and then I read about twins who found out they were separated at birth and they were adopted by two different families. These are Korean girls, and they were born in Korea, and one of them lives in the States, and one of them lives in, I believe, Paris. And they found each other through Google too. So it is fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's ripped from the headlines, if you will.
Yeah. So straight in from the news, and very much about something like we're not even searching now. We Google, don't we? Like it's right in that phenomenon of a worldwide company that can kind of scrape information from everywhere and anywhere. It's just incredible, really.
Yeah, and it has started another phenomena called the Google effect. I don't know if you've heard about this, but we're actually, as a generation, losing our capacity to remember things because of Google and because of search engines. And it's been studied and continues to be studied on how the brain is actually losing its ability to remember, because most of us will not try, even subconsciously, to remember something unless we know we can't Google it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like it used to be a kind of badge of honor or something to know trivia. And of course, we had that game, didn't we, for a long time, Trivial Pursuit, and like to be able to hold knowledge. But that's completely changed.
Exactly. And that's why even education is changing, because for many, many years and generations, we've been tested as students to remember stats and historical things. And now I believe they're trying to change testing with children and students, because we really don't need to have this anywhere in our gray matter, because it's at our fingertips.
Yeah. So it's a real issue for education. I know I've heard some people speak on this. What do we still need to teach kids dates and places when it's just all in the palm of our hand? And I guess we're still working this stuff out. It's really new, isn't it, to kind of know?
Yeah,
And yeah,
it's really, really. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is, we were talking about the genre of the book, which is a psychological thriller. It is also part of this new wave of thrillers called marriage thrillers. And I think you and I spoke about this before, about, and it's really hot right now. And so there are books, for instance, Gone Girl, The Husband's Secret, You Should Have Known. These are all books that are considered part of this subgenre called the marriage thriller. And I think what's making it so exciting right now and really hot as a genre is, if in fact we can Google almost anything about anybody, what are the things that we still can't Google or can't find out? If everything in the world is knowable, what is left that is unknowable? And I think one of those things is, what happens in a marriage? What happens between two people? And as an outsider of a marriage, if you are on an outside, let's say it's a neighbor or a friend, we think we know what the marriage is about by the face of it. But truly, do we know what's going on with these two people? And that is another thing that's explored in the memory box. Certainly, we really, I mean, even poor Andy doesn't know what's going on. And he's in the marriage and he doesn't even know what's going on. But that's kind of a fascinating thing for me, this whole idea of relationships and what's happening in this relationship. And also the facades is a thematic element of the book, and misconceptions is a thematic element of the book, which I love exploring. How do things look on the face of it? And how do marriages look on the face of a marriage? Or, for instance, the book is set, as you know, in a really beautiful suburb of New Jersey. And I remember when I first moved to New Jersey, and I moved to this community, and it's quite stunning, and I really love living here. And I thought, you know, most people think when you live in a community with upstanding people and on the face of it, it looks beautiful, and people are very responsible and active in the community, then everything must be on the up and up, you know. But it's sort of like the Stepford Wives phenomena. For me, that was one of my inspirations, is what happens in the Stepford Wives also is there's something bizarre going on that you don't know about because it's under the guise of this upstanding, beautiful community. So, yeah, that's one of the things
Yeah.
that we explore in the memory box.
Well, I think it's a really powerful exploration of that and the assumptions that we like to make about each other, I guess. If things all look nice, we can often assume, oh, that person's relationship is functioning much better than my relationship and everybody's happy and all that.
Right.
But, yeah, what's going on, and how do we don't know, and their
Yeah.
assumptions. Yeah.
I think we have that today. We feel that more than ever. That's sort of like a Facebook phenomena also, because when you have friends on Facebook and you see that they're taking photos of, family events or parties or out to dinner, you get a split-second snapshot of emotion. And as a spectator of that, you look at that and you think, wow, they look at how happy they are. But what you really don't know, because that truly was a split-second snapshot. Everyone was smiling and everyone's posing, but things are not like that. People's lives are not like that. So it's really interesting to look behind it all, and that's the reason why also I chose to tell the story in first person present, which because then we're in the head of Caroline and we know what's going on, and she is a very different private persona than she does public persona. Um, yeah. So I don't know how much are we getting any sense of how much we can talk about the book?
Well, a few people have just popped in the chat room that they're still to read the book.
Oh,
And of course, you're quite open that there's a twist in the book. There's something really delicious at the end, and it feels important to hold that because that is a real part of the experience. I mean, I really enjoyed anticipating that, seeing if I could guess it, and yeah.
right.
So let's hold that. And someone was also saying that they have read it, and someone else saying that you kind of turned, that first story about someone Googling themselves and they realised that they had been taken away by their mother, and
Yeah.
that in your book you turn that on its head, or I guess you do something really different. So I guess they've read the book too, and just notice how you've written a different story to that.
That's quite an extreme. I mean, what happens in the memory box, certainly I took it to the extreme. And I also was inspired by the other inspiration that was happening at the same time when I started and when I read that article in the New York Times, was moving to this community and being a new mom at the time. I had two little toddlers, and I saw how there were moms in my community that were incredibly in control. They just looked, I felt sort of like, flying by the seat of my pants most of the time with two toddlers. And I had just left my job of many years in New York and moved out to the suburbs. So that was new for me too. And so I saw these moms that were really in control of the home life and their children's and school. And so that was really inspiring to me too. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to create a character who is, again, the extreme of control? And we have that in Caroline. She certainly controls every aspect of her life. And at first, we don't see that. So for the people who haven't read it yet, you'll I won't speak more about that because I don't want to give away anything. But you'll see how she is someone who is definitely in control.
Yeah, yeah. So there's something that's unraveling in that through
Right.
the book, I guess. Yeah, but it is kind of important to allow the experience of that for the book too, not to say too much, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. But we can talk about so we can talk about the whole process of writing and um, when I first finished the book, the manuscript, I queried literary agents because that's something you do when you want to be published traditionally. And for those of you who don't know, the Memory Box was self-published and is self-published.
So we could do a little bit about that, like the
Yeah.
experience of being an author. I think that's really valuable. But there's something I wanted to, just in terms of the Google effect, would it be okay just to say a little bit more about that? Because I think there's something, I mean, often events that we do are about relationships and therapists
Mm-hmm.
and just this experience of perhaps, you know, our mobile phones are so powerful now that we think we know the world or we think we can know, but there's something about like what emerges in that moment to moment experience of a relationship, like in a marriage can also be the same, I guess, therapist, client. Like, I think you do an amazing job of saying, right, okay, we have a sense of the world, perhaps a sense of our community, but also you manage to stay engaged with us. Like for Andy, he's getting these surprises, and Caroline is things are not going to plan, and
Yes.
so I think I'm also really interested in that interesting contradiction between knowing and not knowing, and I don't know if
Yeah.
that makes any sense to you,
Yeah,
Eva.
and the dynamic that they have in their relationship. And
Yeah.
people ask me about Andy all the time. What's my sense of him personally is that he's an extremely trusting person.
Mm-hmm.
He's very trusting. He's married Caroline, and he loves her, and they have a wonderful life together. Um, but it does kind of make you think about, and this has been said, many times before, when you go to sleep at night and you look over at your spouse who's sleeping and you think, do I really know him? Do I really know her? How much do I know? And what about their past don't I know? I mean, that's something very real. And I think many people have thought that, do I know everything there is to know about my spouse? Um, the other relationship in the book that I think is really, really interesting and important is the one of Caroline and JD, her sister. And Caroline's need, we discover, for a relationship that's so close, um, that she is fascinated by twins, and and maybe fascinated is an understatement, but she really, when she was in kindergarten, we find out that there are twins in her kindergarten class, and she's just blown away by the relationship of these two sisters and how almost that and I'm sort of fascinated by twins as well, even though I'm not a twin. But every time I do a book club, somebody tells me that they're a part of a twin. And I just did a book club the other night and met two pairs of identical twins in this book club. And one of them didn't know she was an identical twin until on her 50th birthday, she and her sister decided to take the test. Yeah,
Yeah.
the what's the test called? I completely forgot about it
No
now.
idea. Yeah.
But they wanted to, it was a genetics test to see if they were fraternal or identical twins. So on her 50th birthday, they both discovered they were identical twins. But there is something about twins that fascinates me in that they have this understanding of each other without needing to communicate, and they have a bond without really even needing to test it or to work at it, or it's just there. And that was the other fascinating thing I learned about these two girls who just discovered via Google that they were separated at birth and adopted by two different families on two different continents, and they explored the last 20 years of their life, and they found out they have so many similarities. Their fears are the same. That freaked me out. Can you imagine having the same fears as someone who you, or their, what they love, and their quirks? I mean, so interesting. So the memory box does explore that whole idea of twins and that type of relationship. And actually, I do have another story where I have twins in another story. But I won't talk about that now because that's a work in progress.
Right. Okay. So it's a fascination for you, Eva,
Yeah.
and like there's something about, oh, how might we be connected as humans in ways that don't make sense in our kind of normal scientific, if you can measure it, it exists kind of way. Like there are other ways that we can be connected, and yeah, and of course, well, sibling relationships. I'm kind of wondering what the rest of the group is wondering, and I mean, Saz and I are siblings. There's six of us in our family, so it's a big
Wow.
family, lots of dynamics, and all those relationships are different, and
Hmm.
sometimes it's fab and sometimes it's difficult.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. So I've just wondered if anybody in the chat room has any, are thinking about that. And oh, and Candice is asking, where did you get the idea for the therapist? Because of
Ah,
course there's a therapist. Yeah,
I'm so happy to see Candace. She is such an important part of the memory box. I'm just going to say that Candace was the person I was fortunate enough to work with. She copy edited the book. So I'm so excited that she's here today.
Candice, you've done a great job. The book is fab. Yeah. So
A great,
you guys have made a really good team together then. Yeah.
yeah. But that's a great question. Okay, so the reason for the therapist, apart from my fascination with that relationship between patient and therapist, because the book is told in the first person present, like I said, we're in Caroline's head for the entire story. But there needed to be things that the reader could learn about that Caroline didn't know. So she couldn't provide everything. There had to be certain surprises for Caroline. And so I had to explore the different devices that I could use within the book as just in writing it. Where could information come in that did not come from Caroline's head? So either that would inform her or frighten her or scare her or surprise her. And certainly the computer and Google was one of them. So every time Caroline went on and Googled herself, that was a really great way for information to come into the story that she wasn't responsible for, that didn't come from her. So the therapist was exactly one of those devices as well, because the therapist had audio tapes of sessions that he and Caroline had together for years back. Okay, so when we discover Dr. Sullivan in the memory box, this is years after Caroline first visited him and was in therapy sessions with him. So that's where the idea came, that he would provide audio tapes from the past and we'd be able to get information that Caroline is unaware of, or seemingly unaware of at the time. Of course, she should have been, because they were audio tapes of her in most cases. Although there is one tape of her mom, Elaine, which was, I think, for me anyway, it was one of the most fascinating things to write for me. I loved Elaine. And I loved, I just loved whenever she was on screen, as they say. I really
Okay.
did enjoy writing her dialogue and writing her character. And if this is ever turned into a film, I want to be Elaine.
Oh, really? Yeah, you
Yeah,
want? Yeah,
yeah. So, and hopefully I'll have to age a little bit.
yeah, yeah.
But
Of course,
yeah,
absolutely.
she's kind of a yeah kooky, fascinating woman.
Yeah.
So we discover that that conversation that Dr. Sullivan and Elaine happened, they had it privately. So this is Caroline's first experience listening to this tape and what her mom says about her, which is at times, very tragic. And so we see that whole scene unfold. So that's where that came from. And also, I should say, because this was really important to me at the time when I was writing the part of Dr. Sullivan, who's the therapist, I had someone in mind the entire time who was my muse for that part. And I guess I was thinking years ago, if I was ever lucky enough to have this as a film, there was somebody I had in mind that would be genius to play the part of Dr. Sullivan. And I actually wrote the part for this person who unfortunately is no longer alive and just passed away recently. And it's Philip Seymour Hoffman, the actor. I don't know if
Mm,
you know him.
yeah, yeah. So he would be perfect in that role. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
who I saw in my head for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
But thanks for the question, Candace.
Great question. Like, and because the book was written, we're in Caroline's head the whole time. It's like there was a need to bring in this other information, and so
And
like
that's
from
where the box itself came from, too. So if you think about, so the different devices to get the information into the story was the computer. And then there's a box. We discover this box in Caroline's closet, actually, and it is the memory box. And I won't go into what we discover inside because that would be a spoiler. But that's another place where she discovers things in it that are quite surprising to her at the time.
yeah.
So the three, and that's where the obviously the title of the book, the memory box, most obviously is talking about that box that she discovers, the physical cardboard box, but it also is the computer. The computer ends up being the other memory box, and certainly the last thing that I intended to be the memory box was her own memory.
Yeah. So all sources of remembering and information. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, as I was reading it, like so, I've read it in a kind of two sittings, and um, like it has a disturbing quality to it as well. Like, and when the therapy, so I wonder what it was like to write that. Like to be deep inside. Um, so I want to be careful how much I say. But does
Yeah.
that question make sense to you, Eva? Or
Yes, and I will touch upon that because a lot of people who know me personally are really shocked at first to read the memory box or to hear that I write in this genre because I'm really not a dark person at all. And in fact, my true writing love is humor. I love writing humor. And I write short pieces of humor. Although I am planning a longer novel, but that will probably be two projects away because right now I am working on and I'm halfway through my second psychological thriller. So that I'm working on now. But the funny thing is I can't read the genre and I cannot watch movies in the genre because I am a big chicken. And I get scared very easily.
yes,
I
okay.
can't watch it. I get nightmares, and so it's bizarre. Why I can write it, all I can say is writing this thriller was like a puzzle to me, and I'm really excited about the puzzle aspect of it. It's also quite mathematical. I have to figure out certain things. How am I going to? Somebody asked me the other day, oh, I can't talk about that because some people haven't. They don't know how Caroline and Andy met.
Right.
Okay, so we won't talk about that.
Okay. Oh, that was a great catch, Eva. Well done.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, but when you all read the memory box, and I hope you do, there is a scene where we discover how the two of them meet one another, how Caroline and Andy meet. And so people have asked me, how did you come up with that idea? Because it is quite, uh, well, can we say it is not normal? Let's say that. That's
Okay. Okay.
true
Let's
enough
say that.
without
Yes.
giving anything away.
Yes. Yeah.
And I love how everything's turning into a teaser now. So people are going to be reading it, I'm sure, this afternoon after we finish this book club. But so, how did I come up with that idea to put them together in that way? It's almost like an algebraic equation to me. You know, how will I figure things out, and how will I work out the puzzle? Which is really, I love that, and I also really love to explore characters who do have a dark side, but we discover it's not the only thing about them, that there are qualities about them that are really engaging. And I guess I'm thinking about a character I'm currently writing in my new book. And I absolutely adore this person who's one of the characters, but he is screwed up big time. I mean, it's troubling. He's troubling. But there are so many wonderful qualities about him. And it does bring us to this moral dilemma, which a lot of people have also with the memory box and certain characters who I won't divulge which ones, but that they're set up to have a conundrum at the end. You know, what do they think about certain characters in it who show both these sides, a disturbing dark side, but then also a loving side, and with aspects of their personality that we can relate to. That's scary too, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it absolutely is. But I think it's a great exploration of what it means to be human in terms of, for me, we all have a disturbing dark side, and like, yeah, so like,
What else do you want to tell us, John?
oh, I know, I'm just
The
wondering.
world is listening.
Well, there's something about Caroline's chaos,
Hmm.
like, which is almost like a continuum to the darkness or something, like a road. Does that make sense? And like, there's something about the order and the routine of life and society that kind of keeps us, perhaps even helps us keep our moral fiber together. But like just a few things going wrong, the chaos of that, who knows where it can take us? And
Yeah. And sometimes it's happening so quickly too. How do you stop it? I think sometimes when people are on this quick sort of chaos, road to chaos is how you put it, a lot of rationalization happens too. I find, they have excuses for certain things, and the excuses start to snowball, and it's not clear to them anymore where the bad started, and so they get caught up in the rationalizing that they don't know in the end what were they truly. Um, it's so hard to navigate this conversation, but
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. But do you know what I'm saying about a
yeah,
downward spiral? Sometimes you don't know where did it begin, and at which point can you cut it off?
yeah. And
And yeah,
well, to me, it's an important cultural conversation as well that we're engaged in about good and bad, good and evil, and those two things being pitted against each other. But actually, as humans, we're many things. Like I just noticed in a comment in the chat room that we're all a mixture of many different aspects, and that it can be so easy, and often the media is painting cultural groups and individuals as all bad or all good. But yeah, and actually and yeah, the characters are a mixture of those things. And I think it's, the book is also an interesting exploration of that too. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like, could it be us? And what are we capable of? And yeah,
Well, that brings me to that story I think I told you a couple of months ago about how I love when I'm watching the local news and you see, the film crew from the news station goes into someone's neighborhood and they ring somebody's doorbell, and the guy with the microphone, is waiting to speak to the person who lives there and says, "Oh, hi. I wanted to talk to you about your neighbor." And then the camera pans over to the neighbor's house, and some guy's being dragged out. He's handcuffed, and the police are on each side of him. And what do you think of Mr. Smith? And he was just arrested for whatever. And the neighbor's like, "Oh, Mr. Smith has been the best neighbor we've ever had, and he always volunteers to shovel our path, and he's walked my kids to school for the last 5 years," or whatever it is. And we find out he's a horrible guy who's thrown people in his basement or something. So um, it's but then that goes back to also the facades and people on for face value. When you take people for face value, you sometimes don't know other things are going on. But certainly we're talking about thriller stuff here, and hopefully that's not happening in anybody's neighborhood.
yeah,
um,
yeah. Yeah, so I guess there's both things in this conversation, isn't there? There's like what happens when, as humans, we end up at the extreme ends, I guess, in terms of how we treat and the things that we do to each other. And that certainly is a huge minority of people who land there.
right.
And of course, there's that, how do we treat each other in that moment to moment emerging relationship, whether it's in a marriage, in a community. Like, in some ways, we're all inventing ourselves in the next moment, or we're all still yet to experience that next moment, and how we interact and how we are with each other has a big impact on each other too, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's certainly when you say we're inventing ourselves, or part of what I've really been lucky about in the publishing of this book that I've worked on for so long is the last 6 months, or actually, no, maybe it's only been 4 months since it's been out. I've been in touch with so many people that I haven't spoken to in many years, either from childhood or from school, my teenage years, or college, and we've lost touch with one another. And because of the book being so public and on online and interviews and Facebook and whatnot, we've been brought back together again, which has been wonderful. But the thing that I'm experiencing now is I'm meeting people now, if they're my age, we haven't been in touch since maybe we were 17 or 18 or even younger. So I am seeing this reinvented, or not reinvented, but the adult version of the person I knew. So, which is really sometimes really exciting because, I wouldn't have known them as a mom or a dad of young children, and now I see them this way, which is really interesting. Um, and I did want to just maybe go back for a second to talk about the process and how it did finally get published, even though when I was preparing the manuscript and trying to query agents, literary agents, I was unable to get a literary agent. And it took a ton of effort and many, many, many rejections. That when I just decided, what, I have two options. I can forget about the memory box and move on, which I did do actually a couple of years ago. I left it on my computer and I started this new story that I was talking to you about. Um, or I can put it together myself and publish it and self-publish it. And it's never been a greater time to be a writer because we have that option now. We don't really have to wait for the traditional world to catch on to us. and to discover, oh yeah, we have a really great manuscript here. We can do it ourselves, which is not to say that it isn't extremely it's difficult because for me anyway, it was an extreme learning curve. How do I publish this on my own? And I need to have it copy edited. And I was lucky enough to discover Candace, and we worked really well together. But also to find someone who could design the cover, which I really wanted the cover to be a beautiful and engaging, and certainly that's the first thing people see even before they read what is this book about. So that process was both wonderful and agonizing. Picking, you only get one cover. So there were a lot of rejected covers when the designer and I were working towards what would be best to represent this genre, because that's super important. You don't want to mislead people with the wrong aesthetic on the cover, and you want to attract the right reader, and then just getting it published. Finding the right people to do that, and the company, and how do I do it, and so that it was enormously challenging, but I have to say it was really wonderful. I couldn't have been prepared for what would happen after the book was launched at the end of June, and how exciting it's been to see people responding and reaching out. I mean, one of the most wonderful things that happened is I'm also on Goodreads, for anyone who wants to touch base there. I love getting questions and feedback from people on Goodreads. It's really so fun for me to see people, they have a favorite character or a favorite scene, or on Goodreads, actually, you can put your favorite line from a book. There's a list with famous quotes, and so that's really fun because you never know what people are responding to. And it's always interesting to see if it's also one of my favorite lines or not, or
Right,
someone
right.
something else.
And
Um,
in the publishing experience, I'm wondering how important Kindle has been, because that also is a more recent phenomenon, and people can join a Kindle club as well. So that is it like a club with?
yeah, it's enormously. I mean, the Kindle version of the memory box is selling really, really well, and much better than the paperback, in fact. Now, I don't know if more people read Kindles. I don't think that's the case, but because I self-published the book, right now it's really challenging for me to be in bookstores. And so, unless I contact individual bookstores one by one, or if somebody is in their hometown and they would love to buy it from their town bookstore, they could go into their bookstore and say, could you please order this for me? And then they would get it in the store. But so as a self-published author, I'm not just writing, I'm distributing and marketing and doing the public relations and everything.
It's a
So
massive job, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's massive. And you have to pick and choose where to spend your hours because um, there's only 24 hours in a day, and I need my beauty sleep. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but it's been fun too because I love marketing, and I am a publicist, so that's really worked to my advantage. So, but I really want to dedicate my time to the second book now, and right now that's sort of on hold as I'm promoting the memory box. But going back to your question on Kindle, I had such an amazing month in July because my Kindle book, I put on a free promotion for 3 days because I wanted to get some visibility and get my name out there and the book out there. And so I thought, my goal was, boy, if I could give away 200 books, I'd be so excited. And I don't know why I came up with that number. It was just my goal. I thought that would be a great number. So I'll never forget this. The first day I woke up, day one of my promotion, I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I ran to my computer and I looked to see how many books had been downloaded on my promotional day, and 618 books were, I know, by
Wow.
6 a.m. the first day. So I was just floored. I was floored. I remember my mouth dropped open. I was staring at the screen, and before I could even form a thought in my head, the graph ticked up to 922 books or something like that.
Oh my goodness.
By 6:02, it was 900. So in the 3 days, at the end of the 3 days, 27,452 books were downloaded.
Oh my god. Oh, I just have to kind of close my mouth. That's incredible. That nearly
27,000,
30,000.
yeah,
Wow.
non-blood relatives of mine had.
They're not all your siblings and aunts and
So that was so exciting. And the book went to #1 in the Kindle store, and it's been doing quite well. Now the promotion was over after 3 days, so now I'm back to trying to sell the book and still trying to. But one of the wonderful things that came out of that, although I don't know if that was out of the Kindle promotion or not, but on Goodreads, I was contacted by a woman who is living in Portland, Oregon, and she said, "My book club decided to read your book, and I'm trying to look for book club questions, and I'm responsible, and we're doing the book club meeting in 2 days." So you know this probably, John, as well as anyone who's read the book. There are questions at the back of the book. So I knew then she didn't finish reading. So she and I had a good laugh about that because I had to tell her, just look at the back of the book and you'll find the questions.
they're right there. Yeah.
Yeah, they're right there. So, but I said to her, I have an idea. Why don't I attend your book club when you meet in 2 days? And she was completely flipped out because most people don't have authors at their book club.
Yes.
And she was in Portland, Oregon, and I'm in New Jersey. And she said, I don't know how are we going to do this? And so I offered the Skype solution. And she was so excited about the idea, she decided not to tell anybody in her book club. She was going to have everybody assemble in her kitchen, and they were all standing around and having a glass of wine. And she had her laptop on the kitchen counter, and she said, someone really wanted to be here tonight, but she's in New Jersey, and she couldn't join us live, but she's on Skype, so I just want to introduce her to you. And they were all like, who are you talking about? We don't know anybody in New Jersey. And then the Skype went live, and she said, it's the author, even Natiello, and the whole kitchen went crazy. It was so exciting. They were the loveliest group, and they were my very first book club. And again, a non-blood relative, none of them. So that was really fun.
That sounds a great way to start doing
Yeah.
the book clubs and yeah, just really getting into people's attention and conversations. Sounds like you've had the most amazing experiences the last few
Yeah.
months. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really been quite thrilling. And the best thing of all, I should share with everybody, and John, I just told you this because it's sort of a recent development, is that the memory box is doing so well that it has caught the attention of a publisher who would like to acquire the title, and also the attention of a literary agent who I recently signed on with. So I finally, after all these years, have the most wonderful literary agent, and she's being so supportive. She absolutely is crazy about the book. And so we may, after all, have the memory box traditionally published. So we're crossing our fingers on that. It might still happen.
Wow, that sounds fantastic, Eva. And of course, as as you've been chatting about, this is like the new way that publishing happens. Like you've done all the hard work, you've got the cover, you've done the copywriting with Candice, and you've done an amazing amount of promotion, and then the publishers go, "Oh, right, okay, this is of
Exactly.
interest," and it's kind of the job now of authors to kind of get to that point and then be picked up, or
And it's sort of this crowdsourcing phenomena that's happening now too. And like we were saying before, the publishing industry is very in tune with self-published authors these days because they can go on, for instance, Amazon or Barnes and Noble, any online bookseller, and see how is the book doing? How many people have left a review? What are the reviews saying? Are they positive? Are they negative? What are the so in a way, the publishing industry, they have the ability to find talent out in the world with very little risk on their part. They see, for instance, I've launched my own book, so we know how is it doing, and I do have to say the reviews that I've been getting on the book, they are so you know they're incredible, and I am so grateful for them because as a self-published author, it's so important to get reviews because it helps with the way you rank on these pages, the way people, like an Amazon or a Barnes and Noble or even a Goodreads, the way they feature you on these sites and the way they give you visibility. So I'm so appreciative to anyone that does review the book. I know it takes time and effort, and I really appreciate it. And sometimes the reviews are not good, and I just had one the other day. Oh my God, I was so devastated. It was a terrible review. And I thought, well, why? You, there aren't, I haven't thankfully gotten a lot of horrible reviews, but when you do read one, you think to yourself, well, sometimes I feel like they're almost, I give them more legitimacy than I give a wonderful 5-star praise. And I've been thinking about it a lot for the last couple of days. Like, why am I putting so much stock into something that's negative versus, something that's so it's so amazingly positive. And it's interesting why creative types do that, because I know it's not something that's unusual. We sort of glom on to the guy who tore you apart. We can't get that out of our mind. It's really interesting.
It's amazing, isn't it? 199 great reviews, one bad review, and it's like, oh. But like that's the thing that really makes a difference for you. If when we read the book, if we see something on the social networks, Facebook, Twitter, get onto Amazon, say something about the book there, that really makes a difference even.
Yeah.
And you're really active on the social networks, particularly Twitter, so you would really respond, you'd be up for the conversation there.
Oh, so. I love hearing from, that's so fun. I mean, what's more indulgent than getting a reader to reach out and say, oh, I loved this, or this was really fun, a fun, whatever chapter. Actually, there are not that many fun chapters, but but that's okay. I mean, for people that like suspense, you're not looking for the fun. You're just looking for a quick, read, and it's very exciting. So, but I do love to hear definitely from readers and their reaction, and people love to tell me their theories, what they thought was going to happen. When they were surprised in the end, they thought something entirely different was going to happen. They love to tell me what the sequel should be about. So that's very interesting for me too.
Yeah. So I guess there's a possibility there that maybe there's something else to write, and that we were talking about that just before we come on, and well, who knows? Who knows? Yeah.
I don't really know. I can't tell you because I don't know what Caroline's thinking. But as soon as we have a conversation,
then who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a practical question that I was thinking about earlier on. I mean, it sounded like you gathered a bit of a team. You got a designer to help you with the cover. Candice has helped you with the copy editing. And is that something that you would recommend? Someone's got a manuscript, they're thinking about what to do. Like, how much of a difference did that make to you to have some good people around you that could help you with it?
Right. Someone has just reached out to me a couple of days ago, and he self-published 2 books, and he really doesn't know how to kind of get the marketing machine going, or he wants to sort of tune in and see. We're constantly learning from one another. Self-published authors are constantly learning from one another what are the right things to do and the wrong things to do. But I would absolutely say the thing that you must do if you've written a manuscript and you want to self-publish the book, research is so incredibly important. You must research the best way to do it. if you want to do it, successfully, see what people have done and how they've failed. I mean, not just succeeded, because you will learn as much from the people that have made mistakes, which I've made plenty of, and as well as someone who has found, the right things to do. Because I don't even think you can find the right things to do unless you've failed first. So absolutely have it edited. If you can have a developmental edit, which is something done earlier where someone helps you with the plot, the character, copy editing. Maybe if your manuscript is really tight and you need a set of eyes to look at it to make sure things are, you have right punctuation and spelling and grammar. Um, I definitely think getting someone who can professionally design your cover is going to be immeasurable for your visibility. I really do, because there are a lot of covers out there that you can tell when they're designed by the person who maybe wrote it. If you can find someone within your budget, I mean, of course, all this, the bad part is when you self-publish, you're paying for everything. You're paying for the edits and the design and the formatting and the publishing. So you have to come up with a marketing budget for yourself and try and stick with that. But there are ways to do it. The other thing is you must have a group of critical readers called beta readers, people that you turn to read the book, give you critical feedback. I see Jane is here. Hi, Jane, one of my friends and fellow writers, and also a beta reader, and so grateful to her. She was an incredible set of eyes on that book. But these are people that hopefully will read it in enough time before you publish that where their criticism or their ideas or the things that they've discovered in your manuscript will help to make it better. And again, not blood relatives. I know I keep saying that about the blood relatives, but you need feedback from people who actually, when I picked a group of beta readers, I picked about 5 people who I did not want to know who they were. I asked my friends to find them. And I didn't even want to have any correspondence with them. I wanted them to communicate with someone other than me so they would give completely honest feedback. And they would not worry about editing themselves or hurting my feelings. That was really important to me, because it's useless when you find out all these things after you've published. So that was part of the process. And then the other thing is once it's published, you really do have to research how to market, how to market the book, how to promote it. And it's very time consuming, but it could be wonderfully rewarding, really, and really fun. I mean, I've had a great time.
Yeah, you've been really enjoying that. And I think that's a great tip about how to find and interact or not interact with your beta readers. And I think as another top tip, I guess, I wonder, do you have any ideas? I mean, we're just about out of time, aren't we? But I want to squeeze this question in.
Sure.
Where might people start to look for cover designers, copy, editors? I mean, I guess we find our colleagues in all sorts of places, but is there any good places to start?
Well, I'm trying to think. The way I found Candace was, I believe, through a Facebook search. That was after a long time of trying to, again, on Google, trying to research copy editors. I came up with a list of requirements that I wanted my person to be, and you have to come up with your own personal, you know, where you have a list and you can tick off what are the, do you want someone who worked in the industry, who works on nonfiction, on fiction? So, and also get involved in writers groups. On Facebook, you could get involved in writers groups. Um, blo- there are so many wonderful bloggers who write about writing and who write about the craft of writing and who write about just publishing or who write about just editing. I mean, it's the sky's the limit, really. And if you follow these bloggers, find people that you like, find people that you think make sense and that are very helpful, and then subscribe to their blogs. And one of the websites, thebookdesigner.com, I believe. That's how I found my book designer. All he does is talk about book design, and once a month he has a contest for the best self-published book covers that he has seen. And so I remember about a year or longer before I was ready to publish the book, I was actually looking at book cover designers and seeing everything that they do, and who had the feel that I wanted, for my book. So you have to really work well in advance because everything takes so much time. But it goes back to the research thing. I mean, there's really no easy way to do it or quick way or magic formula. It's because it's also personal.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm really glad you're catching that. Like, there's some good places to start and to look, but like all good things, it takes time and effort to track down what's right for you as the author, what's right for the project, and yeah. Eva, thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day to come and chat to us as a book group. It's lovely to get a sense of you and the book, and also the experience of being a self-published author. I mean, it sounds like you've had a blast, but it's also been hard work, and I guess there's some times that it just felt too much and full of tears, and like
Yeah,
a real tough journey that you've managed to stick with. Thankfully.
absolutely. You heard about the tears, I guess. Well, yeah, there are ups and there are downs, certainly, but that's part of art too. I think most creative types know that it's stick with it, try and persevere and do the art that makes you the happiest. And someone will, if people say to me all the time, do you try and find out what sells? Do you try and find out what type of book to write depending on what's really hot right now? And I personally think that's the wrong way to approach any art, because it will never be yours. It will never be the thing that's coming from your heart or your mind. You have to write the story that's in you, not something that you think someone wants to read. So yeah, hard work and perseverance, and as long as you're having fun, as
Yeah.
long as the sort of smiles outweigh the tears. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I guess that like, the job is so big. If the story's coming from within, it's a real part of who we are. Then it's worth sticking with, and yeah, and
And no one else can write that story.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, I would really encourage everyone to go and grab a copy. Eva, you're very generously offering 2 signed copies of the book for our competition winners. And if you're watching right now, if you just scroll down the live page, Saz has put up a link. You can just click on it into the competition. The competition is live till midnight UK time, so just a little under 4 hours. So
Oh, good.
to me, the best plan, get on Amazon right now, download the Kindle version and start reading it, and also enter the competition to get a signed copy, because that's really nice to have the paperback with your message as well, Eva. So 2 great things to do right now. Yeah.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Saz.
Yeah, and thank you. Well, it's really great to do this with you, Eva. Thank you to everyone who's joined us on the website, and of course everyone who will engage with the recording. We'll get it in our library at Online Events, so we'll get it on YouTube. Yeah, thank you, Eva. We've really enjoyed ourselves with you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, bye for now.
Bye-bye.